Namuga sat by fire, deep in thought. She knew Mama Chigale's rice was the source of the curse, but she needed the proof, something the villagers could see with their own eyes. Then an idea struck her. The rice. Mama Chigale cooked it in secret. What if there was something hidden in it? She grabbed a small clay pot, filled it with water, placed it over the fire. Then she took a handful of rice her neighbor had brought that morning and threw it into the pot. She waited. The water started to boil, and soon something began to rise from the bubbling surface. Namuga's eyes widened in horror. Tiny black worms. As we dive into our amazing story, let me know in the comment section where you're watching this from. And if you're my new viewer, thank you so much for clicking by. Kindly, if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, subscribe. And from my returning viewer, thank you so much for always coming back. So let us dive into our amazing story. The village of Nasuti was a place full of life, where people woke up before the sun and worked until it disappeared behind the hills. In the heart of the village, just by the dust road, was a small wooden restaurant with a smoking chimney. This was where Mama Chigale sold her famous rice. From morning till evening, the scent of her cooking filled the air, pulling people towards her like magnet. It wasn't just ordinary rice. No, it was the best rice anyone had ever tasted. So soft, fragrant, and full of flavor. It left people licking their fingers and wanting more. Everyone in the village, from the youngest child to the eldest elder, cracked Mama Chigale's rice. In the early hours of the morning, when the cock crowed and the village slowly came to life, children on their way to school would rush to Mama Chigale's stand with small bowls in their hands. Their mothers, too busy with chores, would give them a few coins to buy breakfast. Fathers, preparing to spend a whole day in the fields, would pass by to pick their lunch. Even the village elders, who rarely left their homes, sent their grandchildren to bring back some rice for them. Mama Chigale worked tirelessly, scooping rice in 2 bowls with her large wooden spoon, smiling at everyone who came. "Eat well, my children," she would say. Her voice was warm as the morning sun. "This rice will give you strength." But strength was not the only thing her food gave. Slowly, something strange began to happen in the village. Something no one could explain. The villagers believed Mama Chigale's rice was magical, but they didn't know she had a secret. Every night, long after everyone was asleep, she would leave her house and walk to a hidden place in the bushes. She carried a small sack and a sharp knife, moving silently like a shadow. The darkness did not scare her. She had done this many times before. She walked to places where no one else dared to go, the old graves where the dead were buried, and the deep parts of the forest where animals had died. She knelt down, dug through the dirt, and searched through the rotting remains. Then she found what she was looking for: worms. These were no ordinary worms. They were long, fat, and wiggling, their bodies dark and slimy from feeding on dead flesh. Mama Chigale picked them one by one, whispering strange words as she placed them in her sack. Some of the worms were taken from the graves of people who had died mysteriously. Others came from the remainings of animals that had died in the wild. When she had gathered enough, she hurried back to her house. There, in the silence of the night, she washed the worms, dried them by the fire, and crushed them into tiny pieces. Then mixed them into her rice. By morning, her food was ready, and the villagers, unaware of what they were eating, came running as usual. "Eat, eat," she said, serving them while smiling. They ate, and that was the beginning of their downfall. Days passed, and the people of Nasuti began to notice strange things happening. At first, it was small changes. People feeling tired even after a full night's sleep. Their bodies suddenly weak and slow. But then, a real horror started. The children who ate Mama Chigele's rice began to change the fastest. A boy who had been 7 years old now looked 10. A little girl who had just learned to walk suddenly spoke in full sentences, her voice sounding like that of an adult. Their parents were confused but also amazed. "Maybe our children are just growing fast," they said. But there was something even more disturbing. The children who ate Mama Chigele's rice became rebellious. They no longer listened to their parents. A mother would call her son, but he would ignore her and walk away. A father would shout at his daughter, and she would just stare back at him with empty eyes, as if she was listening to another voice. The only person they obeyed was Mama Chigele. If she calls them, they ran after her. If she told them to do something, they did it without hesitation. Even the youngest child trusted Mama Chigele more than their own parents. The village was changing and no one knew why. But there was a woman who saw what others did not. Namuga. Namuga was not like any other women in Nasuti. She was different, strict, careful, and sharp-eyed. She had 2 daughters, and she loved them more than anything in this world. She taught them everything, including the one important rule: do not eat food from anyone's house. Always eat what I cook. Her daughters listened. They never begged for food. They never touched Mama Chigele's rice. At first, the villagers thought Namuga was just too cautious. Some even laughed at her. "Why do you refuse to eat Mama Chigele's rice?" they asked. "It is the best food in the village." But Namuga was not convinced. She watched. She saw how the children in the village were changing. She saw how the adults became weak while their children became strange. She saw how every child obeyed Mama Chigele like a servant obeying a master. "This is not normal," Namuga whispered to herself. She decided to watch Mama Chigele closely. Every day, she sat near the restaurant, pretending to be resting. She watched how Mama Chigele served the food, how she smiled at the villagers, and how she always seemed too happy when the children came to eat. Something is wrong, and Namuga was going to find out what it was. She had no idea that her discovery would put her life in danger. Namuga knew she could not accuse Mama Chigele without proof. The villagers trusted the rice seller too much, and if Namuga spoke without evidence, they would laugh at her or worse, turn against her. So she decided to wait and watch. One evening, after finishing her chores, Namuga sent her daughters to bed early. She sat outside her hut, pretending to enjoy the night air. But her eyes were fixed on Mama Chigele's house. She knew that every night the rice seller disappeared before dawn. Namuga waited, her heart pounding. Then, just as she expected, Mama Chigele stepped out of her house, carrying a sack and a sharp knife. She moved quietly, looking left to right before slipping into the darkness. Namuga's breath caught in her throat. Where was she going? Without thinking, Namuga followed her. She kept her distance, walking as silently as a shadow. The night was dark, and the sound of a cricket filled the air. But Namuga could hear Mama Chigele's footsteps clenching softly on the dry leaves. After a long walk, Mama Chigele stopped. Namuga hid behind a tree, peeping through the branches. What she saw made her blood run cold. Mama Chigele knelt down, dug her fingers into the deep earth, pulling out wiggling worms. But these were not just any worms. They were black, fat, and slimy, the kind that fed on dead bodies. Namuga's hands flew on her mouth to stop herself from gossiping. Mama Chigele whispered strange words as she collected the worms, placing them carefully in her sack. Then, as if hearing something in the wind, she suddenly froze. She looked around, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness. Namuga pressed herself against the tree, her heart throbbing wildly. For a moment, Mama Chigele stood still, listening. Then, satisfied that she was alone, she picked up her sack and disappeared into the night. Namuga let out her slow breath. She had seen enough, but now she had to find a way to stop Mama Chigele before it was too late. The next morning, Namuga woke up with a thought in her mind. She had to warn the villagers. She hurried to the marketplace where women were already gathering to buy food. Mama Chigele's stand was full as usual. A line of children, their eyes hungry and eager, waiting to eat the rice. Namuga couldn't stay silent anymore. She stepped forward and raised her voice. "Listen to me, my people," she called. "Mama Chigele's rice is not normal. It is making our children sick, and it is making them rebellious. We must stop eating it." The crowd fell silent. Then laughter erupted. One man shook his head. "Namuga, what nonsense is this?" "Yes," another woman added. "Mama Chigele has fed us for years. We've never fallen sick." "But have you noticed how weak you have become?" Namuga asked. "And how your children are no longer listening to you?" The women exchanged uneasy glances. It was true. Their bodies had felt more tired lately, and their children had changed. But before they could say anything, Mama Chigele stepped forward. Her smile was too sweet, not knowing. "Namuga, my sister," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Why do you speak against me? Have I ever harmed you?" "You are feeding my people worms from the dead bodies," Namuga spat. Gossip filled the air. Mama Chigele's eyes narrowed. "Worms?" she said softly, shaking her head. "This woman is jealous of me. She wants to destroy my business." The villagers hesitated. Could Namuga be trying to destroy Mama Chigele's business? Mama Chigele wiped fake tears from her eyes. "I have fed you for years. If my food was bad, would you still be standing here?" Some villagers nodded. Namuga's heart sank. They didn't believe her. And Mama Chigele was watching her now, her dark eyes full of something dangerous. Namuga had just met an enemy. That night, Mama Chigele sat alone in her hut, her hands clenched into fist. Namuga had come too close to the truth. She could not let her ruin everything. She had spent years perfecting her secret. She had grown powerful, controlling the minds of the children. If Namuga continued to speak, people would start to question her. She had only one choice. Namuga had to kick the bucket. Mama Chigele reached under her bed, pulling out a small wooden box. Inside was a fine powder made from crushed bones and deadly herbs. If Namuga inhaled even a little, she would never wake up again. With a slow, satisfied smile, Mama Chigele picked up the poison and left her house. Tonight, Namuga would take her last breath. Namuga sat in her hut, her mind restless. She knew Mama Chigele would not sit back and allow her secret to be exposed. The way she had looked at her in the market, those sharp, dark eyes filled with quiet rage, Namuga could still feel the chill. She glanced at her two daughters, who were fast asleep, their soft breathing filling the room. She had to protect them, but she also had to protect the village. Suddenly, a faint, shuffling sound came from outside. Namuga stiffened. The night was quiet, too quiet. Even the usual sound of crickets seemed to have faded. She rose silently, stepping towards the door. The moonlight slipped through the cracks in her hut, casting aerial shadow on the walls slowly. She picked up a wooden stick from the corner of her only weapon. Then she heard it, a soft, sprinkling sound like dust falling through the fingers. Her heart thundered. Someone was outside. Someone was trying to take her life. With a sudden movement, she flung the door open. There, just outside her hut, stood Mama Chigele. The rice seller's hand was raised, holding a small sack, its contents splitting into small ground, a fine white powder. Namuga's eyes widened. Poison! Mama Chigele's face remained calm, but her eyes flickered with something dark. "Oh, Namuga," she said softly, tittling her head, still awake. Namuga's grip on her stick tightened. "You think I don't know what you're trying to do?" Mama Chigele sighed, shaking her head. "You should have stayed quiet, my dear. Now you have forced me to do this." Namuga's blood ran cold. She had to act fast. Without hesitation, she swung the stick. Mama Chigele dodged, stepping back, but she wasn't fast enough. The stick caught her head, knocking the sack from her grip. The deadly powder scattered into the wind, missing its target. Mama Chigele's face darkened with fury. "You'll regret this," she hasted. Then before Namuga could strike again, she turned and disappeared into the night. Namuga gasped for breath, her body shaking. She had escaped death tonight. But she knew one thing for sure: Mama Chigele would not stop. The next time, she would not miss. The next morning, Namuga woke up early, her mind racing with thoughts of the night before. She needed to warn the villagers again, this time with a proof. But as she stepped outside, she noticed something strange. The village was too quiet. Usually in this morning, children ran through the path, playing and laughing before heading to school. But today, the village felt empty. A terrible feeling settled in Namuga's chest. Then she heard it, a wailing. Women were crying. She rushed towards the sound and found a crowd gathered outside the hut. "What happened?" she asked breathlessly. A woman, her face twisted with grief, pointed inside. "Look at my son." Namuga stepped in and gasped. The boy, no older than 6, looked like he had aged overnight. His body was thin, but his face looked strangely mature, as if he was already a grown-up man being trapped in a child's body. His mother sobbed. "He refused to listen to me. He says he only obeys Mama Chigele." Namuga's heart pounded. The curse was spreading. She turned to the villagers. "Now do you believe me?" Some looked frightened, others confused. But before they could speak, a voice through the silence. "Why are you causing panic, Namuga?" Namuga turned. Mama Chigele stood there, calm and collected, her hands folded across her chest. Her gaze was steady, but Namuga could see the warning behind it. The battle between them had truly begun. That night, Namuga sat by fire, deep in thought. She knew Mama Chigale's rice was the source of the curse, but she needed proof, something the villagers could see with their own eyes. Then an idea struck her. The rice. Mama Chigale cooked it in secret. What if there was something hidden in it? She grabbed a small clay pot, filled it with water, and placed it over the fire. Then she took a handful of rice her neighbor had brought that morning and threw it into the pot. She waited. The water started to boil, and soon something began to rise from the bubbling surface. Namuga's eyes widened in horror. Tiny black worms. They wrinkled and twisted, their bodies swollen and slimy. Some still had a bit of decayed flesh stuck on them. Namuga stumbled back, covering her mouth. This was it. The proof she needed. Now she had to show it to the villagers. But she had to be careful because Mama Chigale was watching, and she would do anything to protect her secret. Namuga barely slept that night. The image of the worms wiggling into the boiling water haunted her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them, black, slimy, crawling from the rice, carrying the whispers of the dead. At dawn, she made up her mind. She had to show the villagers. With a clay pot on her head, she hurried towards the market square. The air was still cool, and the village was just beginning to wake up. Women were stepping out of their huts, stretching and preparing for the day. Children were already running about, their laughter filling the morning air. Namuga felt a tightness in her chest. These people had no idea they were being poisoned. She reached the center of the market and placed the pot on the raised wooden platform where traders usually display their goods. Then she climbed on top of it and raised her voice. Villagers! Villagers! Come and see. And few people stopped to look at her. Others walked past, uninterested. She took a deep breath and kicked the pot over. The water split onto the ground, and along with the worms. Gossip filled the air as people stepped back in shock. What is this? A man asked, pointing at the worms on the ground. Namuga's voice was steady. This is what you've been eating. Murmurs broke out. Some people shook their heads in disbelief. Others stared at the worms, drowning in their eyes. I bought Mama Chigale's rice last night. Namuga continued, her voice growing louder. This is what came out of it. A woman covered her mouth. No, no, my children eat that rice every day. Another man looked at his hands as if he could feel the sickness creeping through his body. Then a voice called sliced through the crowd. You are lying. The villagers turned. Mama Chigale stood at the edge of the crowd, her face unreadable. Namuga's heart pounded. She had expected this. I'm not lying, she said, holding her ground. This is the truth, and you know it. Mama Chigale stepped forward. If my rice is bad, then why is everyone still alive? She swept her gaze over the villagers. You all have been eating it for years, yet no one has died. The villagers hesitated. Yeah, it's true. They felt weak, their children had changed, but no one had actually died. Mama Chigale smirked. Namuga is only jealousy because my business is doing better. She wants to destroy me with her lies. Some villagers nodded. Maybe Namuga is lying. Maybe it's all her tricks. Namuga gritted her teeth. Mama Chigale was clever. She was not going to let her business to be destroyed easily. But Namuga wasn't going to give up either. She had one last plan, and this time there would be no escape for Mama Chigele. That night, Namuga waited. She knew Mama Chigele cooked her rice in secret, and if she could catch her in action, the whole village would believe her. She hid near Mama Chigele's hut, her heart pounding as she crouched in the shadows. The night air was thick and the scent of the cooking food. And then she saw it. Mama Chigele stepped outside, carrying a small leather bag. She moved swiftly, glancing around as if making sure no one was watching. Then she disappeared into the forest. Namuga's hands clenched into fists. This was it. She followed. The night was dark, and a path twisted through the trees. But Namuga kept going. She moved silently, her bare foot making no sound. Then she saw a faint glow in the distance, a small fire, and beside it, Mama Chigele. Namuga hid behind a tree, watching. Mama Chigele opened the leather bag and poured something into the pot of boiling water. The flames flickered, illuminating what was inside. Namuga's stomach twisted. Rotting flesh maggots, and something else, long white worms. Namuga nearly gasped. This is how she made the rice. This is the proof she needed. But then a hand grabbed her shoulder. She turned, her heart hammering. Mama Chigele was staring at her. Her eyes gleamed in the firelight, dark and dangerous. You should have not come here, Namuga. Namuga swallowed hard. She had been caught, and now Mama Chigele was going to silence her forever. Namuga's heart pounded like a drum. Mama Chigele's grip was tight, her fingers like iron on Namuga's arm. The firelight flickered, casting aerial shadow on her face. You think you can stop me? Mama Chigele's voice was low and dangerous. You think you can ruin everything I've built? Namuga snatched her arm away, stepping back. The whole village will know what you're doing, she hasted. I'll tell them everything. Mama Chigele laughed, a cold, sharp laugh. Do you think they will believe you? She whispered. I own them. They listen to me. Even their children obey me. Namuga took another step back, glancing around. The trees roamed over them like a silent watchers. If she screamed, would anyone hear her? We don't know that. Mama Chigele's eyes narrowed. She reached behind her back and pulled out a long sharp knife. Namuga froze, her breath caught in her throat. I was going to let you go, Mama Chigele murmured, stepping closer. I was going to let you live. But you're too stubborn, Namuga. You don't know when to stop. Namuga's mind raced. She had to run. Mama Chigele lunged. Namuga dodged, stumbling back. Her foot caught on the road and she fell hard on the ground. The knife sliced the air where she had been just a second ago. She scrubbed up, panting and turning to run. Mama Chigele grabbed her hair. Namuga screamed. Twisting, kicking, she crawled at Mama Chigele's hand, her nails digging into the flesh. Mama Chigele grunted but did not let go. She yanked Namuga's back, raising the knife. Namuga acted on instinct. She reached the boiling pot with all her strength. She flagged it at Mama Chigele. The scalding water flashed onto Mama Chigele's face. She wrinkled in pain, dropping the knife as she clashed her burnt skin. Namuga did not wait. She ran. Namuga ran as fast as she could. Stone cut her feet, but she did not stop. Behind her, Mama Chigele's scream filled the night. You regret this, Namuga, her voice echoed. You regret it. Namuga pushed forward, her breath ragged. She could see the village ahead, lights, hut, and safety. But would it really be safe? Would they believe her? She busted into the open, stumbling into the village square. A few men and women were still awake, sitting by the evening fire. They turned, startling at the sight of her. Her hair whirled, her clothes soaked, her face full of terror. "Mama Chigele," she gasped. She's poisoning us. She's feeding us worms from the dead." The villagers stared. Some exchanged glances, others shifted uncomfortably. Then one man stood. It was Kwesa, the village elder. His voice was calm but firm. "Namuga, what are you saying?" Namuga swallowed hard. "I saw it with my own eyes," she said. "I followed her. She adds worms to her rice. The same worms that fed on dead bodies. That is why our children are changing. That's why we are all weak." Silence. No one spoke. Then a woman whispered, "My son, he's not the same. He does not listen to me anymore." Another murmured, "My daughter, she grows too fast. She's only 10, but she looks 15. The whisper spread. Doubt crept into their face. Then a shadow moved. They turned. Mama Chigele was standing at the edge of the square. Her face was burnt, twisted in pain, but her eyes were full of rage. "You fools!" she burst. "Do you really think you can survive without me?" A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Mama Chigele stepped forward, her burnt skin glowing in the firelight. "Who will feed your children?" she hasted. "Who will give you strength?" The villagers hesitated. Namuga's chest tightened. They were afraid. Mama Namuga still had a hold on them, but Namuga had one last move. She turned to Kwesa. "Elder," she said urgently, "we must check her house. Let us see what she's hiding." Mama Chigele's eyes widened. "No," she snapped. "You have no right." The villagers looked at one another. Kwesa nodded. "Let's go." Mama Chigele stepped back. "No, you can't." But the villagers moved forward. She could not stop all of them. And deeper in her heart, she knew it was over. Mama Chigele's house was dark when they arrived. Namuga's hands were shaking when she held a lantern, pushing the door open. The villagers crowded behind her. They stepped inside and froze. The air was thick with strange sour smell. In the dim light, they saw clay pots lined up along the walls. Kwesa walked forward and opened one, and then he dropped it. The pot shattered, and from it splitted hundreds of wriggling worms. Gossip filled the room. A woman screamed. Namuga's stomach twisted. This was it. This was the truth. Mama Chigele had been feeding them worms, and they had eaten it. "Search the house," Kwesa ordered. The villagers moved. They opened cupboards and they lifted lids. And what they found turned their blood cold. Rotten meat, bones, strange dried herbs, bottle of thick black liquid. This was witchcraft. Mama Chigele was not just a cook. She was something far worse. And now they all knew. A deadly silence filled Mama Chigele's house. The villagers stood frozen, their eyes fixed on rotting meat, wriggling worms, and dark bottle of strange liquid. The truth was before them, undeniable and terrifying. Kwesa, the village elder, slowly turned to face Mama Chigele. His face was grim, his voice was low, but sharp as a blade. "You have been feeding us worms," he said. "You have been poisoning our children." Mama Chigale took a step back, her burnt face twisted in rage and desperation. "You fools," she spat. "You came to me every day begging for my food. You swallowed it eagerly, and now you dare turn against me." The villagers flinched. Some covered their mouths. Some held their chests as if they were about to vomit. A mother clutched her son's arm. No wonder he changed. He stopped listening to me. He only listened to her. "My daughter," another woman cried. "She's only 12, but she speaks like a grown-up woman." "What did you do to her, Mama Chigale?" Mama Chigale laughed, a deep aerial laugh that sent shiver through their bones. "I gave you what you needed," she sneered. "Strength, growth, power, and this is how you repay me." Namuga stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You used our trust against us. You turned our children into something unnatural." Mama Chigale's eyes blazed with fury. "You don't understand," she hesitated. "You never did." Very early in the morning, the villagers gathered around Mama Chigale's house. A heavy silence filled the air. Some villagers held torches, their flames flickering in the morning breeze. Others carried buckets of water and dried grass, ready to destroy any trace of any dark magic. "We burnt everything," Kwesi said firmly. "Nothing of hers must remain." People nodded. Mama Chigale watched from a wooden post where she was tightened. Her face was calm, too calm. She did not struggle, she did not scream. She only watched as the villagers began throwing her bowls, pots, and wooden spoons into a pile in front of her house. Namuga stepped forward holding a clay pot full of dark worms that Mama Chigale had secretly been putting in the food. She lifted the pot for everyone to see. "These," she said, "are the creatures she fed us. These worms came from the bodies of the dead. She has made us eat death." A loud cry of horror spread through the crowd. Some people fell on their knees. Others cast Mama Chigale, shaking their feet on her. Mama Chigale was cast out of the village forever, and after that, they had to cleanse their bodies by eating clean food. After Mama Chigale was being cast out of the village, the villagers rebuilt their lives, stronger and more connected than before. They learned the importance of community, of trusting each other, and of healing the wounds that had festered for so long. Mama Chigale's name was no longer spoken in the village. Her legacy had been burnt away, and the children returned to their innocent ways. They laughed, they played, and found peace once more in the simple things. Namuga walked through the village, her heart full of love for her people and for her family. She had not only saved her village, but she also helped them discover the power of forgiveness. The sun set over the village, painting the sky with warm color. Namuga smiled. It was the start of something new, and this time they would not let fear control them again. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching this far. This is the end of our story. I hope you guys have learned something out of it. Leave something in the comment section where you're watching from and what you've learned in the story. See you in my next video. I love you all.